morning. I'd like to call to order the March 2nd meeting of the Michigan City Board of Public Works and Safety. If everyone would please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the newest addition to the clerk's office. Christina Zawacki is here to help out, and we'll be working with Dawn and Gail. First on the agenda would be approval of minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of February 18th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First, we have request for a street light. Willie Scully at 703 Fairfield Avenue is requesting a street light in front of his home for safety reasons. Is Mr. Scully present today? No. Okay. Has our police department had a chance to look over this request?
Yes, good morning, Captain Jeff Loneski, Traffic Division. I did look at it. There's already a street light at the intersection. The house is located at the intersection of Fairfield and Grand, and there's a street light there, but it's not working. So I went online and reported it to NIPSCO through their online reporting system. So I'll monitor it to see if it gets fixed in a timely manner, but I don't think there's a need for an additional light there once this one gets fixed.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. President, I would suggest that we table this request until the existing street light is repaired and we know that the lighting is adequate by inspection.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to table this. Apparently putting it on our unfinished business list until we know that it's been repaired and adequate. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have Charles Keene from General Insurance requesting approval for the 2020 agreement for commercial property and casualty insurance with the City of Michigan City. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Before I begin today, I just want to mention that I have one other additional item to add to the insurance-related topic that we'll discuss this morning after I run over the renewal presentation. Something came up late last week that we had to get in front of the board, so I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I believe in your packet you have the executive summary of the city's insurance, property and casualty insurance renewal. Page number 1 outlines the scope of service that General Insurance Services provides. Page number 3 outlines the service team involved with the city account. Page number 4 reviews the 7-year loss history of the city. And as I run through this, if there are any questions, please feel free to stop me. I don't know how much detail you want or how much little detail you want. So second part of page number 4 is the market review. So this year we went out to the marketplace and to seek other proposals from other insurance carriers. Travelers, the current carrier, obviously offered a renewal proposal. As well as BCS Insurance Company, who is your cyber risk carrier. Also approached Liberty Mutual, Trident, EMC, and Houston Casualty Company, all public entity specific insurance carriers. The only option that we had received back was the Travelers renewal. And the various reasons are outlined there on page 4. So moving on to page 5, top section, program cost summary. So total expiring premium $705,875. Renewal $759,095. This represents an overall increase of 7.5%. 2.7% of that is exposure, so that means we increase coverage or have higher exposures. And 4.8% is just a straight rate coverage, which is pretty consistent with the marketplace. And moving on to the coverage summary section, general liability coverage. Each occurrence limit is $1 million. General aggregate is $3 million, no changes over expiring. Slight exposure decrease on the budget. Premium is rated based on the city's budget on that line of coverage. Next section is the public entity management liability, the public officials liability. $1 million each occurrence, general aggregate $1 million. No changes over expiring. Moving on to page 6, employment practices liability, $1 million per occurrence with a $1 million aggregate. No changes from expiring. Law enforcement legal liability, $1 million each occurrence, $1 million general aggregate. No coverage changes from expiring. However, the number of officers are up 3, total of 3. The premium is based on the number of officers. Liquor liability premium, liquor liability coverage, each occurrence $1 million, general aggregate $2 million. No changes in coverage over expiring. Excess or umbrella liability, a total of $4 million. Each occurrence with a $4 million aggregate, and that covers over and above the general liability, abuse and molestation, employee benefits liability, the public entity management liability, employment practices liability, and the law enforcement, as well as the liquor, auto, and employer's legal liability. Moving on to page 7, commercial property coverage, expiring total building and business personal property or contents limit. Expiring limit $74,819,217 is the limit. The renewal $75,204,589 is the renewal limit. Those limits are basically generated from the city's appraisal that is done each year. Moving on to the next section, the special property coverage. 2 unique buildings in the city, the Barker Museum. We have $6.65 million of coverage. And the reason we break that out is because it has specific coverage from a reproduction standpoint. So reproduction costs, the insurance company will pay the actual reproduction cost. Because it's a unique building and old, it would be pretty expensive to replace it as is. So we break that one out so we have special coverage for that. And we also, the city owns a vacant building on 2nd Street, close to the Blue Chip Casino. It is vacant, so we have actual cash value because it's just an empty building at this point in time. Business interruption coverage and extra expense, we have $2 million. Same as expiring. As well as the loss of municipal tax revenue, specifically to the blue chip revenue that the city receives, we have $2.5 million. No changes over expiring. The inland marine coverage, page number 8, inland marine coverage or the city's equipment, things that move around, so to speak, includes scheduled property, miscellaneous equipment, rental coverage, law enforcement animals, fine arts coverage, for a total limit of $10.81611 million. Next section, the electronic data processing or computer and equipment coverage is included in the blanket limit. that I spoke of earlier, the 75 million roughly. Moving on to the automobile coverage, we have one more vehicle than expiring. We have 165 vehicles versus 164 vehicles. Automobile liability, $1 million. That includes the uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage at $1 million. No changes from expiring on the coverage. Next section, the crime coverage, includes employee theft, forgery and alteration, computer fraud, funds transfer fraud, social engineering fraud, outlined in the summary. Moving on to page number 9, cyber risk coverage. Very extensive policy on the cyber risk coverage. Primary limits are $2 million, same as expiring. Premium for the cyber risk is also based on the city budget. So that concludes the specific coverage that the city has. Are there any specific questions?
Anything from the board?
Mr. President, I will say that the city administration had a meeting with General Insurance, Mr. Keene, and a very extremely detailed breakdown of all of the coverages, our needs, and where we need to go were presented. I'm totally on board and supportive of this policy. The premium may be higher than some, but the coverage is exactly what Michigan City needs to protect us.
Hearing that, does our attorney have any comments? Anything to add?
Just recommend approval of the same. We do spend a considerable amount of time each year reviewing this, and even throughout the year, sitting down and strategically planning on ways of looking at our insurance, reducing any type of cost or claim. So I'm very pleased with it and would recommend approval.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, board's pleasure.
I'll make a motion to approve the property and casualty insurance renewal. The breakdown is for the commercial property and casualty policy term 3/1 through 3/1 of 2021. This is for travelers, $739,622. Too early in the morning for me. Crime coverage policy, same term, annual premium $4,997, and cyber risk coverage from BCS in the sum of $14,476 for the same period.
Okay, we do have a motion. Is there a second?
Support?
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved or opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. One last item that I spoke to earlier. I'm going to pass this around real quick. So, as that comes around, just a little bit of background. Here to seek approval on a surety bond required by the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 contract with the RDR Group. So, at the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting held on Monday, November 4th, 2019, the board approved the agreement between the City of Michigan City and Waste Inc., RDRA Group, for the reuse and redevelopment of certain portions of the Waste Inc. Superfund site located at 1701 East US Highway 12, Michigan City, Indiana, for the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 project. In this agreement, Section 6.1 requires the city to provide a surety bond to the RDRA Group as obligee. The required surety bond provides security to the RDRA Group for the performance of all post-construction obligations set forth in the O&M addendum of the agreement. This is not an easy bond to get placed just because it deals with Superfund site and pollution. Insurance companies and surety companies are not let's just say, excited about these types of exposures. So in terms of the bond are as follows. The surety company is Crum & Foster. The obligee is Waste Incorporated RDRA Group. The effective date, approximately March 15th or whenever we get it placed until it's canceled. The bond amount is $70,200. The annual bond premium is $2,808. Are there any questions on that? I rolled through that pretty quickly.
What's the term of the bond, term length of the bond?
Well, it's an annual bond, but it's until it's canceled.
Okay.
The term of the bond, the contract requires 10 years, but it potentially we may not have to go that long. So that's why we set it up that way.
And what's the cost of the bond now, again?
$2,808.
Does our attorney have any comments or questions?
So, Mr. President, just to add a little bit, the city owns the Waste Inc. site. However, this happened way before our time when it was characterized as a Superfund site. It's still under a federal consent decree where there's persons of responsibility still managing that site. The city team spent a lot of time negotiating with those PRP groups to be able to have the Singing Sands Trail go on this property. And what will happen is if there's any damage to the fencing or the caps along that way, the bond will cover it. Now, when we say that the duration, 10 years until it's completed, there is talk about the EPA releasing the federal consent decree and closing that in the next few years. So there is a chance that once that case in the federal consent decree is closed, then we don't need that bond. Because that bond is just protecting that PRP group in case there's any damage.
Okay. And just, this is the old Winsky property out on 12, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For those who've been around long enough to know.
AMI metals.
AMI metals, yes. Okay. Okay, pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve?
Second the motion to approve the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 surety bond in the sum of $2,808.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Next, we have approval of an engineering services contract between the City of Michigan City Board of Public Works and Safety and John A. Doyle and Associates, Inc. for on-call professional engineering, surveying, and related services effective January 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. I do see that Mr. Doyle is present. Do you have anything to add to this, sir?
Good morning, everyone. Basically, we presented our proposed contract. We're in the process, your insurance requirements for umbrella is somewhat higher than what we normally carry, and we're in the process of covering that. Currently, we have a umbrella of $1 million. Apparently, your requirements are $3 million. So we're in the process of getting that coverage, but should have it by the end of this week or so.
That's fine. I believe that this is just a standard on-call contract not to exceed $75,000. I know Mr. Wright, our engineer, is here, and I think he would just use Mr. Doyle as needed throughout the year. And yes, Mr. Doyle is correct that he's just going to be updating his certificate of insurance. So the board could approve this agreement just subject to receipt of the updated certificate of insurance.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Doyle?
Mr. President, I do. Mr. Doyle, is this insurance requirement bigger than it has been in the past?
I'm not sure about that. We have always carried $1 million, basically for our workman's comp, of course, is state, for our liabilities, but we have errors and omission insurance, which is $2 million coverage. This is new to me.
You obviously never had any problems with it in the past. I'll pose a question into our redevelopment, or our development director. Is this a higher level than we have required in the past, to your knowledge? Okay.
Mayor, it was pretty standard amounts that we've been utilizing for the last few years.
Oh, okay.
So we will obtain the coverage. It's just a matter of getting it worked out.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve the contract with John A. Doyle and Associates for an as-needed contract in the amount of $75,000,
Second that motion,
Pending.
pending approval of the board.
and I will second that also.
Okay. All right, well,
Pending receipt of the insurance, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Farmers Market request. Johnny Stimley, event coordinator, is requesting approval of the following for the 2020 Michigan City Farmers Market. First is use of city property, city-owned property located at 8th and Washington. And second is Farmers Market contract agreement between the City of Michigan City and each vendor. Mr. Stimley, do you have anything to add? I had one question, and that was with the contract, it doesn't specify what the vendors are going to be paying.
So, Mr. President, this is just the standard form. Those amounts will be filled in once we secure each specific vendor, but I believe Mr. Stimley just wanted the general approval of the form to use, and then that'll be filled out accordingly.
Okay. And then the second question I have is regarding the general liability. As we just discussed with Mr. Doyle, it's $3 million. This is showing $2 million. Is that what's required for this type of event, or?
Correct. We laundry listed what the general liability should be. We spent time with general insurance going over this as well, and we also have a standard certificate of liability form that we provide each vendor each year to use as a format to follow. So.
Okay, there.
So is that amount $3 million then? Like
It would be. It's the general aggregate is $2 million. Each occurrence would be $1 million.
Okay.
Correct. That's what it would be.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve the request for the farmers market to use city-owned property located at 8th and Washington Street, and also to approve the farmers market contract agreement formed between the City of Michigan City and each vendor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion is approved. Next, we have a memorandum of understanding. Shannon Eason, representing Michigan City Public Art Committee, is requesting approval of the memorandum of understanding between John Suave and Michigan City Public Art Committee for the display of artwork Faust on city-owned property located at the northwest corner of 6th and Franklin Streets in the Uptown Arts District, commencing on June 11th, 2020 and concluding June 10th, 2022. Artists will be paid $2,000. Shannon, do you have anything to add to that, or?
I'd just like to add, this is a part of our Sculpt Fusion, which is a rotating art exhibit in the Uptown Arts District. This particular piece we decided to keep for an extra 2 years. We think it's a good price and a good fit for Sculpt Fusion, so we'd just like permission to renew it.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, do we have a motion of any kind?
I make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between John Suave as artist and the Michigan City Arts Committee for display of the public of work Faust on city-owned property located at the northwest corner of 6th and Franklin Street in Uptown Arts District, commencing June 11, 2020 and concluding June 10, 2022. The artist to be paid $2,000.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. We have a retirement announcement. Michigan City Fire Department announces the retirement of Robert Watkins, which is effective March 8th, 2020, and that's just for informational purposes. And we'll move on to the claims docket. We have municipal claims in the amount of $1,585,185.40. Medical trust claims in the amount of $145,099.03. Workman's comp trust in the amount of $357,118.87. And CDBG in the amount of $17,098.45 for total claims of $2,104,501.75. Board's pleasure.
Motion to support the claims as stated.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second motion.
A motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the payroll docket. City payroll total of $545,463. $545,463.45. Yes, it is Monday morning. And city pension total of $225,401.39. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion to approve the payroll docket as presented and incorporate the amounts that have been so stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the payroll docket. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our unfinished business list. At the top of that list is J&B West Roofing requesting pyrotechnician display. I know we'd received some correspondence from our attorney regarding this.
So I did let the board know that I spoke with our fire marshal, and at this time, there's nothing that this board needs to do with this gentleman's request. What'll happen is, under state law, he will be asking for a special permitting. That permitting will then go to the fire department via the fire chief and the fire marshal to examine the site and the location and ultimately give their approval. So at this point in time, unless this gentleman's coming here for some type of road closure or something to that extent, there's nothing that this board needs to do to approve a location. That'll go through by state statute to the fire department, fire chief, and fire marshal.
Thank you. Then I would request a motion to remove this from the pending list.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and a second to remove J&B West Roofing request from the unfinished business. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we're revisiting Cora Cambridge requesting a street light in front of 227 Gladys Street. I'm assuming this is going to stay on our pending list until we found the funds to to pay for this?
No, sir, Mr. President, I'm going to make a motion to honor that request. I think we can handle that. That's important.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to have a street light placed in front of 227 Gladys Street. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now, do we need a motion also to remove this, Amber, or?
If you want to remove it now, yes, or you may want to keep it on until such time as the light is actually there to check on the status.
Okay, then that's what we'll do. We'll leave it on the pending
That's fine.
list until we know the work has been completed. Next is John Chalikian. No access to property. I know that the mayor was going to meet with Mr. Chalikian last week.
Yes, sir, we did. We spent some premium time together, Mr. President.
Okay.
And I've discussed it with our planning director, Mr. York. I believe he wants to comment on it.
Okay.
I don't have much else to add. We're in the process of getting it, exploring what we're going to do there and getting the contract together and discussing what the what our options are with that. We are moving forward. It's not going to be as as quick as John or John would probably like, but given that he's been here a long time, doing this, asking us a long time. But anyways, we are moving forward with working on some contractual language to see if we can potential of a road, repaving of that road. All those things are optional right now.
Okay, but progress is being made.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question? Do you have an end date that you foresee, 60 days, 90 days?
Oh no, I'm thinking this is going to be.
You can't give us a date.
Yeah, this is going to be much longer than 60 days because you're dealing with a wetland there as well, and unfortunately, that's what stopped it originally was that wetland being there. So we're gonna have to work through those issues as well. I would venture to say it'll be much longer than 60 days, but I don't know what an end date would be.
Just for Mr.
I wish I could give a date just for something reasonable for him to rely on. I just will tell him that just bear with us. It is on the table now, and we are moving forward.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board, from Mr. Chalikian? Do you have anything to add?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This been going on for 22 years. They done all the surveys, all the borings, all the experiments. They paid for it. This is another waste of money doing the work over and over again. The ground been bored and it's been tested by the engineers on Franklin Street. And they come to me at Mayor Oberle's time, the other mayor's time, and now it's dragging and dragging and dragging. And there are several individuals that are interested in buying, but they're not going to buy it, just kind of pending, which there is no end to it. All it is, it's 20 feet of area. It's already, the ground is done in front of my eyes. There is sand and there is gravel. All it has to be done black-topped. 20 feet. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Okay, then we will leave this on the pending list for the time being until we find a solution.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a comment if I may.
Sure.
Just so the public understands, Mr. Chalikian's real heartburn for a long time has been that we plow the snow up on that, which we have no place to put the snow because on all sides of that is private property. That's a dead end, and what we are looking at is pushing the area we're talking about is a north-south a service road that runs in front of Meijer, Lowe's, and Menards. And what we would like to do, what we're going to try to do, is to push that south to tie it into the entryway to Walmart. which will take traffic off of Franklin Street. It will improve public safety on Franklin Street. And in conjunction with that, probably at a later date, we've been requested many times to run sidewalk along Franklin Street in that area, which is very difficult. If you look at it, the drainage swales are right next to the street, the parking lots are right next to the street. That safety, or that service road, is where we will run the sidewalk at. People can walk along that. They still have access to the buildings, and the businesses, and it'll be definitely an improvement. I understand fully that Mr. Schlaken wants to sell the land, but I'm not a historian. I assume that land was wetland when he bought it. It was not. Well, for whatever reason, it became wetland. You have to replace wetland at a percentage of 1.5 to 1, at a ratio of 1.5 to 1. You take 1 acre, you have to provide 1.5 acres to replace that. It's a requirement to maintain a certain amount of wetland. We are going to do what's right, but it does take time. So, Mr. Chalakian, I realize that you had this on the burner for a long time, and you're making the city look like a real bad guy, and we're not. We're gonna take that property off your hands when we can do it for the public safety. But you just need to hang on and chill out a little bit. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Next is Harvey Picorni, 905 Colfax. This has to do with paving or millings in an alleyway. We had projected a date of March 2nd today to move this forward to Mr. York. Do we have anything to add to this?
I can speak about it because I remember this really wasn't something I was involved in. That it was the previous city engineer. I think what I would do is just maybe refer this to Jeff to see what he wants to do. It is a public right of way, meaning it's an alley. So it belongs to the Board of Works. It's your purview. So maybe I'll just see if Jeff wants to go down there and take a look at it. I could ride with him as well, just to show him where it's at, and see if the recommendation is still the same from his point of view, as we've had a new engineer now. So, not to shuffle it off, but I just want to be able to that he's okay with it as well, because it is your right of way. You'd be making the recommendation to you guys.
Okay. Then with no objection from the board, we'll ask Mr. Wright to take a look at this and report back to us on our next meeting on March 16th.
Okay, Jeff? Sorry, I didn't mean to. Okay.
Thank you. And finally, we have, this is staying on our unfinished list until next meeting, March 16th, order to demolish 710 West 10th Street. Is there anything new to add to this at all? No? Okay. Then we will bring this up again in 2 weeks. Okay, that completes that. Next would be public comments.
Mr. President, if I may real quick.
Okay.
I did not get this contract in time to meet the deadline to put on the Board of Works agenda, but just a general contract with Applegate and Company for professional and tax services. Per our purchasing policy, we are required to have the Board of Works approve any type of accounting, professional tax service work that we may require. We'd ask the board for approval of use of Applegate and Company as needed by the Controller's Office.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board? No. Do we have a motion from the board?
Make a motion to approve the contract between the Applegate Company and City of Michigan City for professional tax and tax services as needed.
Do we have a second?
Support.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on with public comments.
Good morning. My name is Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street, Michigan City. Got a couple of issues, but I just want to briefly try to get some kind of clarification on the street lights. I see Mr. Scully ask for lights on Fairfield, and then somebody on Gladys asked for street lights, and you guys approve it. What's the difference? And just for the record, because we couldn't talk at the time, I did a lot of door-to-door throughout Michigan City. It's very dark over there by Mr. Scully's house. Very dangerous over there. And we know that darkness brings predators, and these are issues that candidates come into our neighborhood pandering for our votes, making these promises that they're going to do sidewalks, they're going to make lights, we're going to make all this stuff happen. And here we are talking about the same issues again. If I can make a suggestion, how about every neighborhood get 25 lights a year, street lights a year, ground up lights, such as Elston Grove has. We all should look this unified. We should all look this uniform. We should all look the same. And I say that you put in 25 lights per year in every neighborhood, and at the end of your term is 4 years. That's 100 lights. That's a good starting point. You don't have to we don't have to just flood the whole neighborhood with, spend all the money we can to make these lights. But when you do come in our neighborhoods and you pander for our votes and you knock on our doors and you make us promises, then you should keep those promises. And I'm offended that we care more about some artwork that doesn't even reflect the African American community, the black community. I've never seen any artwork that reflects anything of my history and my heritage. But yet we worry about artwork, but don't you think it's time to make the neighborhoods the artwork? It's time. People in these neighborhoods, we are suffering. Now, one of my issues that I came mainly here for is the sidewalks on the major streets throughout the city. We get the sidewalks, we build them. At some point, you need to maintain the sidewalks. I see you got a lot of insurance coverage, and sooner or later, you might end up using it. Just recently, I just sent you a picture of it to you, Mr. Perry. I just sent you a picture of several gentlemen just walking down the middle of the street in Michigan Boulevard. When it snows, the city does nothing to the sidewalks. It makes our young people, older people, any people, get in the middle of Michigan Boulevard and walk up and down the boulevard because we're not maintaining it. Nobody wants to get out and shovel the snow. I'm pretty sure we have the equipment to remove the snow off those small sidewalks. So you do it every time it snows on Franklin Street, and you saw it. Now it's just going to be a matter of time before one of our young kids trying to get to school or somebody going up and down the street get hit by a car. This should not be going on. This went on with the last administration. I complained about it then. I'm going to continue to complain about it. If we build the sidewalks, we need to maintain the sidewalks. It's the city right away. It's not our responsibility. But we do expect to be safe in this community. It just should not happen at all. On another note, my last issue that I guess I just bring up, over the weekend I received phone calls about an incident that happened at Crawford's restaurant / nightclub or whatever you want to call it. We had a police officer who had an encounter with a young lady. This police officer is Marty Corley. Reports was that he was very belligerent, and also another officer had to get between them and stop him from escalating. I don't want to go into detail because there's two sides to every story, but it seems like the same person is in every story. And I don't know if the city knows this. I know the people that's watching this. Right now, the city is facing a lawsuit involving Marty Corley, slapping an autistic kid. Here is another disabled person he has allegedly assaulted. I know how I feel to be falsely accused, so I'll just say allegedly. But there was body cam footage. And if we're about transparency, I say that we get the body cam footage and let the public see what kind of behavior, how this police officer is interacting with people in our community. It needs to stop if it's true. If it's true, it has to stop. He should be removed. It's police, it's the same nonsense that continue to happen in our community. And I'll say this again. We come in our community, come in the black community, we pander for our votes, knock on the doors, oh, I'm going to change this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to got it all covered. And then when we get into office, we don't do nothing. And we got the same issue. Mr. Perry, I sat on your committee to get you elected. And then I left your committee. But we did have great discussions. We picked up from Virginia Martin and then Damon Carnes. We talked about forming an independent citizen review board because there's too many problems with the police department. Just because we got a black police chief and the police chiefs change, there's still problems. And it seems like they're getting worse. I think that it's time for us to implement that. I think it's time for you as the mayor to get a workshop together with the city council president, and we need to make this happen. Because that's what we said we was going to do. When you was running, you said you was going to take care of that problem at the police department. And we need to get it done. And I greatly appreciate you guys listening to me. And anything I can do to help, I'm willing to do. The swimming pool is still in front of my house. I've been talking to Miss LePage every time she see me. I know she's tired of me. Personally, I wish you guys would just buy me out so I can leave. I'm sick of Michigan City. I'm sick of the leadership that we've been having in our city. I want to leave, but I can't afford to leave right now. But I appreciate you listening to me, and thank you.
Any other public comments? Public comments? Hearing none, do we have any comments from the board?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Mr. McCormick, I'd like to respond to everything you mentioned. First, I believe you talked about the sidewalks being cleared. As I sit here talking to you now, I don't know what equipment we have. I'll find out. I know it bothers me to see people walk in the streets because they are going to get hit. It's a bad thing. What I envision for that is smaller equipment, like a good size garden tractor with a snowblower on the front. Okay, well, if they do, I'll get it out there. I don't know that they have it, and that's the truth.
I got Facebook Live feed showing you the city cleaning Franklin Square. Every time it snows, they clean it.
Okay.
The tractors with plow on it just fits right down the sidewalk.
Okay, well then we'll start running those down the boulevard. Once I figure it out, once I see them that they're still running, we'll put them in to work. The other thing you talked about, what else did you talk about?
Streetlights. Artwork.
Artwork. I like to, I'm going to inventory what streetlights we got because we take down old ones and we put new ones up in areas that are popular. And if we have them, we'll put them up. And regarding the police officer issue, I can only assume, since you didn't mention a specific name, that Officer Corley's involved in all of them.
Correct.
Okay.
And I got the phone call from a Jacoby Spencer. It's her daughter. So she's supposed to have came today. She's supposed to have came today, but she didn't. So I just wanted to speak up on it because I've been finding out that there's lawsuit after lawsuit, and then here we go again with the same story and the same person. It concerns me. That's all. And I know we're going to get to the bottom of it.
I'm going to investigate that myself because there was an issue with animal control with Mr. Corley about his dog that I was right there during the confrontation between Mr. Corley and our animal control officer. And I've dealt with that, but I didn't know about the others, but I'm going to find out.
Yeah, I just say please get the body cam footage, and we ran on the fact that we was going to make sure we get a citizen review board. I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.